So, you want to talk about a career that really keeps things moving, huh? Aviation communications and frequency coordination management.
Yeah, gotta say, it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about aviation,
Right.
but someone's got to make sure all those pilots and air traffic control folks can actually, hear each other up there. And the materials you sent over, whew, it's a lot more involved than just handing out walkie-talkies.
It's definitely a lot more than meets the eye. It's a whole symphony of signals going on up there.
A symphony. Okay, I like that. But seriously, this communication infrastructure thing, what are we really talking about here?
Well, you've got your radio frequencies, that's a big one. But we're not talking about just any radio waves. Think very specific VHF bands, each one carefully assigned to prevent any kind of overlap or interference.
Ah, so it's like organized chaos up there.
In a way, yes. And then on top of that, you've got data link communication. It's basically like text messaging, but for planes. Adds a whole other layer to manage.
So hold on, it's not just making sure the radios work. It's like managing this whole invisible network that, let's be real, most people never even think about.
Exactly. And this network, it's not getting any simpler. Think about 5G. It's not just changing how we use our phones down here, you know?
Oh, right, I read something about that.
It's going to be huge for aviation, too. Faster speeds, bigger bandwidth, which means more data can be transmitted. That could change everything from how pilots get real-time weather updates to, well, who knows, maybe even remote flying someday.
Remote flying. Okay, now that's just wild.
But it does make you think this isn't the kind of job where you just learn it once and you're done.
Definitely not. It's a constantly evolving field. Always something new to learn, a new challenge to tackle, whether it's adapting to new technologies or, like you said, figuring out how to safely integrate things like unmanned aircraft.
Drones, right? Those are becoming a big deal.
Huge. So, yeah, if you're looking for a career that's going to keep you on your toes, this is it.
Okay, let's say someone's listening to this and they're actually thinking, sign me up. What would you say is a good starting point for someone who's just dipping their toes into this whole world of aviation communication?
Well, first off, you've got to have a good grasp of technology. That's a given.
So we're talking engineering whiz kind of stuff?
Well, it's not just about being a tech guru. You need to understand the ins and outs of aviation regulations, communication theory, even things like meteorology.
Meteorology. Weather.
Absolutely. Weather plays a huge role in aviation. Always has.
That's right. I've had my fair share of weather delays. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the guide you sent over, it mentions a whole range of degrees that can be helpful. Aviation management, telecommunications, even computer science.
So it's not just one straight path.
Nope. You've got to be able to speak the language of pilots, engineers, policymakers. It's a surprisingly interdisciplinary field.
Interdisciplinary. I like that.
And on top of the technical stuff, you need to be a problem solver. Like, imagine this. A major storm is rolling in, right? Suddenly, boom, there's a critical data link outage at one of the busiest airports in the country. That's the kind of high-pressure situation where an aviation communications and frequency coordination manager, they really earn their stripes.
Oh, wow. Talk about pressure. So it's not just about knowing the tech stuff. It's about staying calm and thinking clearly when things get interesting.
Exactly. You have to assess the situation quickly, troubleshoot on the fly, come up with creative solutions, all while making sure that air travel stays safe and efficient.
It's like your air traffic control for their communication systems, right? Making sure all the signals are landing in the right spot.
That's a really good way to put it. You're responsible for making sure all those signals are clear, that everything's moving smoothly, and that, yeah, everything gets where it needs to go. And it's not getting any simpler either, especially with things like, drones becoming such a big thing.
Drones, right, of course. Can't forget about those. They're everywhere these days.
And they're only going to become more common. So figuring out how to integrate them into the airspace safely, efficiently, that's a huge challenge for these aviation communication managers. They're having to develop totally new systems, new protocols, all while handling even more data than ever before, and of course making sure those drones and traditional aircraft can share the skies without
crashing into each other. Yeah, that'd be bad.
Exactly.
So it's like the work that these managers are doing now, it's actually going to shape how we fly in the future, right? Like with drones becoming so important and everything.
Oh, absolutely. It's a field where you need to have a deep understanding of how things work today. But you also need to be thinking ahead, anticipating what's next, what's coming down the line, like how we're going to communicate with all these new aircraft, what's that going to look like. It's exciting stuff.
It really is. And speaking of what's next, this guide you sent, it lays out different stages in an aviation communication manager's career. And it's not like a rigid ladder, climb this rung, then this rung. It feels more like this kind of path where your skills and responsibilities just keep growing and evolving.
You've got it. You're not just climbing the ranks. You're always learning, always taking on new challenges.
So let's walk through it. What does that actually look like? From day one, fresh out of school to becoming a seasoned pro.
Okay, so picture this. You're fresh out of school, raring to go. You might start as an assistant communication specialist, so you get your hands dirty, working with the equipment, troubleshooting minor issues, learning from the more experienced folks.
Like the apprentice in the communication control tower.
Exactly. And then as you get more experience, you get more confident, you move into a junior management role. You might start overseeing projects, coordinating between teams, making sure those installations and upgrades all go smoothly.
So you're not just fixing the problems anymore, you're starting to take charge.
Exactly. You're developing your leadership skills. You're figuring out how to manage budgets, how to stick to timelines, and you're getting more involved in the strategic side of things.
And what about when you hit those more senior roles? What kind of stuff are you dealing with then?
Well, as a mid-level manager, you might be leading a team that's responsible for a specific piece of the aviation communication puzzle. So maybe you're focusing on data link infrastructure, or you're all about radio frequency management.
So you're becoming a specialist.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And you need to really know your stuff. You need to be able to look at data, analyze it, figure out trends, anticipate any problems that might pop up. You're also mentoring more junior staff, making sure your team is up to date on all the latest tech.
Sounds like it's a balancing act at that level. You need those deep technical skills, but you need to be a leader and a strategic thinker too.
Absolutely. And then, there's the top, senior management. Those are the people who are shaping the future of the whole system.
The big bosses. They've reached cruising altitude in their careers. What's it like up there?
Well, they've got a bird's eye view of the whole thing, the entire aviation communication ecosystem. They set the long-term strategy. They're the ones pushing for new technologies. They have to make sure their organization is ahead of the game, especially in such a fast-moving field.
So they're not just thinking about the next software update, they're thinking 10 steps ahead.
Exactly. They might be working on new industry standards. They might be collaborating with the FAA or other regulatory bodies, or even exploring the potential of things like space-based communication.
Space! Wow, now we're talking about taking this to a whole other level.
Oh, it's an exciting time to be in the field, that's for sure.
I bet. It sounds like every step of the way, you've got these technical challenges, leadership opportunities, and the chance to actually make aviation safer and more efficient for everyone. That's got to be rewarding.
That's what it's all about. It's a challenging career, no doubt. It's constantly changing, and it demands a very particular set of skills. You need the technical know-how. You need to be able to lead, and you need to be able to think ahead, anticipate what's coming. But if you're passionate about aviation, if you get excited about the future of technology, the rewards are huge.
So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, this is it, this is the path for me,
Yeah.
what advice do you give them? Where do they even start?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Well, I always say start with the basics, Really get a solid understanding of how aviation communication works. Radio frequencies, data networks, the whole shebang.
So hit the books, learn the language of the skies.
You got it. And don't just stick to the theory. Try to get some hands-on experience. Internships are great, even if you're just shadowing someone. See if you can get your foot in the door at an airport, an airline, maybe even one of those companies that specializes in aviation communication tech.
Get a feel for how it works in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. And, don't be shy. Network. Go to industry events, join some professional organizations, meet the people who are already doing this work.
Because it's all about who you know, right? Especially in a field like this.
It definitely helps.
Yeah.
You're not just looking for a job, you're building connections, finding mentors, maybe even future collaborators. It all makes a difference.
So you need the technical skills, but you got to be a people person too.
100%. You'll be working with a lot of different people, pilots, engineers, you name it. Being able to communicate clearly, build those relationships, that's essential.
So bottom line, for anyone out there who's drawn to this whole world, this idea of keeping the skies safely connected, who gets excited about the technology that makes it all work, is a career as an aviation communications and frequency coordination manager. Is it worth it?
I'd say so. It's tough, it's always changing, and you really need to have your head on straight. But if you love aviation, if you're passionate about the future of communication, there's nothing like it.
It's not just about keeping the planes in the air. It's about shaping the future of how we fly.
Well said. As the skies get busier, as the technology gets even more complex, it's about making sure we can all keep flying safely.
This has been fantastic. Seriously, eye-opening. We got to dive deep into the world of aviation communication, learn how it works, and where it's headed.
And we just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn about this field.
A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this journey.
Happy to do it.
And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a whole new topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and never stop learning.